the Japa retreat, which is to have devotees share their journey with the holy name. And all of your friends are looking at you and happy. So I think the first thing they would want, so I was instructed to pick 3 devotees. And I think the first thing all four of them would say is that they're not trying to portray that they have perfected the art of chanting the holy name. So we want to take that burden or pressure off of them. They're devotees and they have experiences just like we all do. And the idea is for them to share their chanting, not necessarily in like microscopic detail, but each of them will take, they will take about 15-20 minutes, and then there'll be time for some question and answer session if need be. So the idea was to talk about their experience with chanting, what they found made a difference, what they found was helpful, what they found maybe was not so helpful, and so that we can all relate and kind of try to understand what are some fundamental things that happen to help people progress in chanting. So my simplistic mind came up with a simple solution, which is 3 different age groups or statuses in life. You know, brahmacharini to grihastha to perfected devotee, old lady, you know, to vanaprasth. But also like age difference and, you know, different situations in life. So this is Aditi and this is Tungi Vidya Mataji. And the 2 of them represent the retired age, as you can tell. No, I'm joking. So Aditi is a student at OSU and studying in computer science or engineering or whatever it is. And Tungi Vidya is a medical student who's studying in California. So the 2 of them together, you know, I've observed that they've become, I wouldn't say serious about bhakti or sadhana, but very happy with sadhana, acts of bhakti. So I thought it would be good for the youth to hear, you guys probably already talk all the time, but to hear their experience and what helped them and what maybe didn't help them. And then Balnitai Prabhu is a dear friend of mine since 2001. 2002 is when I met Prabhu and Mataji. And he's a wonderful devotee, very simple-hearted and genuine in his desire to engage in acts of sadhana, and very introspective about where he's at, and has had lots of experience. He went to Mayapur Academy to get trained as a pujari and has been our head pujari for quite some time, and then took some time off to work, I was going to say perfect, but he would say to kind of put more energy into sadhana, chanting, etc. And so I think it'll be instructive to hear from him about what his experiences were, what helped and maybe what didn't help. And Manasa Ganga Mataji is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who's been serving since the 1970s in various capacities, artist, teacher, and now the encourager of devotees to practice devotional service seriously. And she's also, being a teacher and artist, very insightful about, you know, the journey and what has helped and what maybe hasn't helped. So without further ado, I think we'll go ahead and start. And if it's okay, we'll start with Tulsi, Tunga Vidya, and Aditi. Okay? So loud Hari Bol. And this is meant to be informal. Once again, they're not trying to portray themselves as chanting the pure Shuddha Nam. They're just talking about their experience, okay? So should I put it on this or give it to you?
Haribol. Before I start, Jai Prabhu did say this, but I'm still very much a work in progress when it comes to japa, and everything I share today has been, it's advice given to me by Vaisheshika Maharaj, a lot of senior devotees, and a lot of other Prabhupada disciples. So I just want to make that clear before I say anything else. But yeah, so I wanted to talk today about my own sort of, I guess, struggle with the quality of japa, or quality of my japa. I've always been someone who's been very adamant about just hitting a specific goal. So whether that's just hitting like 12 rounds a day, 16 rounds, I always focused more on honestly just checking off like a task from my to-do list. I never really thought about the quality of my japa, sort of how it was done, where it was done, the intention behind it. It was always, growing up and even until now, it always seems, or it used to seem like something that was a chore to me, something that I had to do just out of obligation. And so it honestly wasn't until last December when I was able to go on a youth yatra with Vaisheshika Maharaj and Tulsi, or Tungavidya, and there, with the association of all the devotees and Maharaj in Dham, in Mayapur Dham, I was able to I had some time to think about japa, because that was the focus of the yatra, and how my own japa was. And so, obviously, when you're in Dham and you're surrounded by a lot of devotees, you're surrounded by, temples and everything, it's very easy to do japa, because that's all you're thinking about. But I knew that once I came back, it was going to be a bigger struggle for me. I wouldn't be able to sort of maintain that consistency or that quality, especially because as a college student, what ends up happening is that I start my japa with this honestly frantic intention of just finishing, just pulling the beads down. And most of the time when I'm chanting, I'm thinking about everything but Krishna. So I knew that was a problem that I was facing. So I decided to go to Vaisheshika Maharaj, who was, facilitating that yatra. And I went to him and I spent maybe 15-20 minutes just complaining. I was like, Maharaj, I can't chant. I do 16 rounds or 12 rounds or whatever, and I know it's not good. And I just spent and he was very patient with me, and I just kept talking about how bad my japa was. And I stopped after a little bit, and he looked at me and he was like, so what are you doing to fix that? And I said, no, Maharaj, I'm chanting every day, I'm doing it. And he was like, no, but what are you doing to make the quality of your japa better? And so it was then that I had this on a moment of realization that in my head I kept thinking that if I just went through the actions of chanting each day, that somehow Krishna would come and just something would happen, and eventually down the line my japa would be better, regardless of how it was done, frantically trying to finish it. And I think Maharaj was he helped me identify that every time I sat down to do japa, I was actively setting myself up for failure. And I'll explain that in a bit, where as a college student, every day, I have to study for a test, or I have to study for a specific, class. Before I start studying, I usually go in with a plan, because I'm like, okay, I have to cover this, this, and this. I have to make sure I get this done, and that leads me to a specific amount of success. I wasn't taking japa that seriously. And of course, it's not a course or an obligation, but I wasn't putting any amount of effort into even trying to make it better. It was just an action that I was going through every day. And so when I talked to Maharaj about that, and he sort of helped me realize that I had a systems problem. I had a problem of having a proper system of chanting, having the proper intention. We identified a couple things to help me with doing, better, or sort of improving the quality of my chanting. And I wanted to share those things with everyone today. So the first thing that's personally really helped me is before you start chanting, is to set some sort of intention or prayer. And I know Tulsi will agree that this is something that Maharaj talks about all the time, which is even if it's like a verse that you really like, it's a pastime, it's something that helps you center Krishna before you begin chanting. That's always really helpful. Even if I'm in a rush, I try to say some sort of verse just so that I'm like, okay, I'm locked in with Krishna for the next hour. This is what I'm going to try to focus on. So even if I get distracted later on, which does happen all the time, I'm able to sort of bring myself back and think, okay, I started with this intention. Let me try to see if I can go back to that intention. Like a lot of the times I'll remember like the places we went to on Yatra and some of the bhajans we like sang there, and I'll try to like say some sort of prayer related to that so that I'm able to get back somewhat close to that mood, and then try to just carry that throughout your rounds. So that was something Maharaj shared that really helped me. And then, of course, the second thing was the distractions themselves, or the other thoughts of like schoolwork and homework. And I remember I was telling Maharaj, I'm like, it's all I can think about sometimes. Like it's very easy for my mind to sort of just go everywhere. And he gave a really interesting analogy of, you know, like the baggage claim at the airport, and you're standing there waiting for your baggage. You try to think of your thoughts like that baggage. If the bag, or if your thought is not related to Krishna, that thought isn't anything related to chanting or japa or Krishna, it's not your bag, let it go. And he sort of helped us all visualize, he gave some other examples too that I'm forgetting, but he helped us visualize like, just let it go, and if it really starts to bother you, keep a sticky note or something and write that thought down so that you have it there, so it doesn't go anywhere. And then take a minute, you can pause even in between the round, take a deep breath, and go back to the intention or the prayer that you set before your japa, and then start again. And once again, this is all advice that he shared with us throughout multiple lectures. And of course, in the beginning, it's still very difficult to implement these, but I've noticed the more I try to like put some sort of intention, put purpose behind my chanting, right? Because that intention gives you a reason to keep chanting. It helps you actually feel a lot closer to Krishna. And so the more I do that, I find myself enjoying chanting a lot more. Of course, it's not perfect by any means. I still get very distracted, but it's less of a chore when I do it. And so I think one of the things that he really, really focused on was that, and this is a quote from him, that while chanting, you have the ability to choose to focus on the mantra pull, or on the mantra, and pull your mind back and focus on that one thing. Focus on the mantra, focus on the intention, and that'll help you get through your rounds in a very meaningful way. So yeah, that advice really helped me. Once again, still very much a work in progress, but I think slowly implementing these practices has made japa something that I look forward to more rather than thinking of it as like a to-do list, or sorry, a check, something to do. It's more of something that I do to feel closer to Krishna. So yeah, that was all. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, everyone. My name is Dungavidya Devi Dasi. I want to echo Aditi's sentiment that I am also a work in progress. It is only by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, and all the assembled Vaishnavas that I have anything to contribute, and I hope that whatever I say today is of some service. So I'll actually be focusing on sort of my story. When Jai Sachidanand Prabhu approached me, he asked me to maybe speak about how I ended up getting to 16 rounds. So that's actually the story I'd like to tell because it is a bit interesting. This starts with the same youth yatra that Aditi was talking about. The very inaugural one was in 22 to 23. It's over Christmas break, so around this time of the year. And that particular yatra, we were in Puri and Mayapur Dham. And when we were in Puri, we went to Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj's Samadhi. And in that Samadhi, Vaisheshika Prabhu was talking about Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj's nature, and one of the things he quoted of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj was, even at the risk of death, one should finish their prescribed number of rounds. I'll say that one more time. Even at the risk of death, one should finish their prescribed number of rounds. And that's definitely a very intense statement. It might sound kind of brutal, and it definitely sounded brutal to me at the time, especially for someone who was not doing a very consistent job with their japa at the time. Up until that point, I'd been doing my chanting as sort of a tradition. Like when you're a kid growing up in Krishna consciousness, it's usually that you see your parents doing japa and then you become interested in it and then you take it up. They actually encourage you, and I want to thank my parents for that. Especially my mom, even as I grew up in high school and college, she would always call me when I was in college for japa calls in the morning. Never missed a day. So it's thanks to her that I had that consistency. But if it wasn't for her, on my own, I was lost. So that quote really stuck with me because I was thinking to myself, I have no excuse whatsoever to not be doing my rounds at this point. And so with that thought, I left Yatra, and I was thinking to myself, like, I really hope that this, I can take my rounds more seriously. But I still struggled with my rounds that year quite a bit. This is 2023. And like I said, I was only really doing rounds with my mom in the morning. Later that year, I met up with my Guru Maharaj, and he was asking me, how's your rounds going? How are they going? And I was like, Maharaj, I'm not sure. And he was like, okay, well, he's like, the goal is to set a number and then stick to that number. He's like, he has a saying where he always says, have a goal, more than 0, not less than 1. That's the bare minimum. So I was like, okay, Maharaj, I can do that. So then started doing rounds more consistently, had a number in mind, and I was like, okay, I need to get this number of rounds done. And I was still struggling. Around that same time, I was talking to a god sister of mine, and she was talking about how she's also a college student at the time, and she still is, and she was really busy, like most students are. And she was talking about how sometimes she'd be up until 2, 3 a.m. doing her rounds, and then she'd wake up later, like 6, 7 a.m. to go to school and do whatever she needs to do. And I was like, you are insane. I can't do that. So I was thinking to myself, like, how would I ever get to 16 rounds? Like Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj is saying, like, even at the risk of death, and she's out here, like, sacrificing her sleep and everything else in her life to get her sadhana done. I was like, that's not me. I don't know when I'll ever be like that. It's just not me right now. But I had this really, there was a deep sense of awe from hearing her story, from hearing what Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj has said. I was like, I don't know when I'll ever be in that position, but I hope that someday I can be in that position. So fast forward to the next Youth Yatra, and we're back in Kolkata, and we're in Mayapur Dham. And it's actually New Year's Eve, so this is actually the January 1st is 2 years since this particular event happened, which is that on the 31st, Guru Maharaj told us, I want you to write down your goals for the year. Like, write down some goals, and then tomorrow we're going to go to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bhajan Kutir in Mayapur. And I want you to read your goals out loud to him and pray to him for his mercy so he can help you. Like, we've all heard that the grandfather is more affectionate than the father. So what do you think that your great-great-grandfather is going to be? So we're like, okay. So I wrote down some goals, and one of the goals I wrote down was related to japa. And I specifically wrote, Maharaj encourages us to write in the active tense because it helps bridge sort of where you want to be and where you're at now. It sets like a more motivating factor. So the way I wrote it was, I am chanting at least 8 rounds every day with the intention of increasing both the quantity and quality of my rounds. 8 rounds. I was already feeling apprehensive about that. But I told Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I was like, this is my goal, and I'm praying for your mercy, please help me. I don't even know if I can do this much. And I came out of that, and I was like, that felt so good to tell Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That felt amazing, like just being here and praying for his mercy, like we'll see what happens. And of course, as Aditi was talking about, when you're on yatra, there's like a special potency from when you're in the dham and when you're with devotees. And next day, like yatra, you have a bit more time just because you're spending your whole day engaged in devotional activities. So I actually got to 14 rounds, I think that next day or the day after. And I was able to do 14 rounds. And my goal was actually get to 16 rounds, but the way the day was, I only was able to do 14. And I told myself, I'm going to go to sleep right now because I'm way too tired. But tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do 18 rounds, and then from then on. And I actually did wake up the next morning, and I did do 18 rounds. And then every day after that, it's been 16. Even the mornings or the days where I came back from Yatra, and I was back in college, it was my senior year, and then the whole year after that, after I graduated, it was just like, I could be, you know, especially because it was so new to me, from going from less than 8 rounds all the way to 16. And I struggled. It took me like 3 hours, sometimes even more. But I'd sometimes forget, like I had an extra round or two to still left to do, or 4 rounds left to do. I would go to sleep, and miraculously, obviously this is Krishna's mercy, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and it's like, hey, didn't you have those like 4 rounds left to do? And I think it made me realize that like this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's mercy. This is the Acharya's mercy. This is like you're being empowered. Like when you have that sincerity, when you really pray, then it comes through. Like you're gonna get that mercy. You'll get the power to do the japa, to do the sadhana that you're asking for help. So. Yeah, I mean, since then I've been chanting 16 rounds, and I'm obviously not perfect. And being a student in medical school, it's still absolutely insane. And a lot of times I'm doing my rounds late into the night. But now I remember what my friend said when she was like, I'm up until 2, 3 a.m. I'm like, now I get why you do this. Because now you feel like you have a duty. Once you have a streak going, it's so much more easy. But knowing that there's all this mercy coming from the acharyas, all this encouragement from the devotees who are rooting for you. Like, I've had so many friends who are like, how's your sadhana going? Whenever they see me, it's like, after, how are you? It's like, how's your sadhana? And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, I know you got this. You can totally do it. And having that encouragement has been so, so helpful. And based on that story, I have just kind of 2 key lessons to take from that. One, which I've already sort of covered, is just the power of prayers. When Guru Maharaj always stresses, like, when you have sincerity, it will come through. That power, that mercy, it'll come through the acharyas. So all you have to do is be really sincere about your prayer. And as Aditi was talking about, setting that intention, making a prayer beforehand. Even His Holiness Ramapal Maharaj was talking about this, where you have a prayer right before you start chanting. It actually opens up your heart. So that's one of those things. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is, obviously the statement by Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, it sounded really brutal, but like even at the risk of death. But I think what I took away from that as I thought about it more is that we all have to sacrifice something. We're always sacrificing something in order to, you know, take care of whatever responsibilities we have. Why don't we sacrifice something for the eternal relationship we have for Krishna? He's your best friend. I tell myself all the time, like, he's my best friend. He's literally sitting in my heart right now. Why wouldn't I pay attention to him? He's literally waiting for me to sit down at the table for him and talk to him. Why do I show up and like I'm on my phone, I'm like doing whatever? So be authentic, be real, and just be willing to sacrifice something for Krishna, because he's already doing so much for you. Why can't you do the same for him? So those are my thoughts.
Om Jnana Trimadandasya Gyananjana Sharakaya Chakshuram Nitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripasindubhaivacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you, Jai Satchidanand Prabhu, for giving us the opportunity. I'm a product of Kripa. I have no good qualities or qualifications to be speaking in front of all of you, but it's the kripa of the sadhus that I've had the association with, and with the devotees, and the holy name. I think continued effort and lots of kripa. That's all I have. But my inspiration in chanting, I think, has been highly encouraged by reading various books of devotees who have written about the holy name, from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Harinam Chintamani to our more like contemporary Vaishnavas like Sachinandan Maharaj's Nectarian Ocean of the Holy Name, and Mahanidhi Swami's Art of Chanting Hare Krishna. I've gained tremendous inspiration and insight into what the holy name is, who the holy name is, and how we can have a connection with the holy name. So those are very powerful ways of connecting ourselves and finding things that can inspire us that we don't know exist by those devotees who have experienced the holy name. Or should I say, experienced Krishna in his holy name. I think one of the biggest things that inspired me was a lecture that Sachinanda Maharaj gave in 2008, Vrindavan Yatra, with His Holiness Radhanath Swami. The lecture is entitled Searching for Krishna. And you can still find it on the ISKCON Desire Tree portal website thing that, I'm sure many devotees use. And it's there, you can hear it. It's a very sweet lecture. And there's 3 very powerful tips. He would say tips or tricks or something. He says, he has the way of speaking. That he took from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I've never taken the time to find where Bhaktivinoda Thakur says these things, but I've tried to implement him to the best of my ability in my own sadhana. And they're very, very powerful. I'll share them. You want to hear them? Yes. Very well. Try. So, Radhe. First one is to know Krishna's is his name. There's the verse from Padma Purana, Banina Tvam Namanamino. Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Ras Vigraha Punarshado Nitya Mukto Banina Tvam Namanamino. That the holy name and the possessor of the name are non-different. Krishna are the same. So if we can understand that when we come into our kirtan, not only kirtan, whether we're leading kirtan or we're participating in kirtan, in both, to understand, to meditate, to think about that Krishna and his holy name are non-different, that we can actually experience Krishna in his name. How many times Srila Prabhupada said that? Right? That's the first one. Know Krishna is his holy name with conviction. And to meditate on the meaning, too, is to meditate on the meaning of the name. We've heard, I think Maharaj was talking about this yesterday or today, right? So know the meaning of the holy name. Our acharyas have given so many meanings. You can go through every acharya and you can see a different, slightly different, elaborate to simple, right? Srila Prabhupada give us a very simple thing, right? My dear Radharani, my dear Krishna, please engage me in your service. Super sweet. To like Jiva Goswami or Raghunath Das Goswami giving like a different pastime or a different meaning for each name of the Mahamantra. And Gopal Guru Goswami gives a very sweet one also. So you find that meaning, the name that resonates with you, and you can meditate on it before you start chanting your japa and your kirtan, or your kirtan, whatever. And 3, to chant in the mood of calling out for Krishna. So Maharaj also, when he mentioned this in that lecture, he said to chant with heart-renting lamentation. So that doesn't mean like boo-hoo, woo-hoo, whoa, I'm crying, like, it's a big problem thing. But like that, Krishna, I want you. Krishna, I want to serve you. Krishna, I want a relationship with you. And when we're not experiencing that relationship, there can be some lamentation in the heart. And Srila Prabhupada would say, like, we should cry for Krishna. This is the mood that he's talking about. That we should be, and then Maharaj also said, this falls into prayerful japa, that we should pray. You were saying pray, both of you, right? Yeah, this either a prayer from the previous acharyas or our own prayer. Very powerful connection. I think you said, Maharaj said, it opens your heart. Yeah, so it opens your heart, and it's very sweet, because that's what we need, is to have an open heart to let Krishna in. What happened? Sachinanda Maharaj gave a wonderful example of this calling out for Krishna in the pastime of Draupadi, when she was being disrobed in the assembly of Kauravas. How she was looking at different people, Bhishma, save me, this save me, that save me. And until she just lifted her arms, hey Govinda, hey Gopal. But it wasn't like, hey Govinda, hey Gopal. Have you come yet? Am I done yet? Right? It's not like that. She was chanting from her heart with desperation, right? This is how we should be chanting our japa every day. Every moment we chant the holy name. So the essence of what Maharaj was saying was that we should chant with affection. So these three things that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave help to enliven our japa to chant with affection. Because without affection, then there's very little reciprocation with Krishna. He hears us, but it moves Krishna's heart when we chant with affection. So trying to do that has probably been the most enlivening thing for me in trying to implement those things. Srila Prabhupada Maharaj played a wonderful clip of Srila Prabhupada talking about chanting with priti, with love, today, this morning, right? Wasn't on there, yeah. This also has been inspirational to me to try to introspectively consider, where's my heart, where's my mind, where's my intention while I'm chanting. Am I trying to chant with love, or am I just chanting? So Jiva Goswami says there's two ways of chanting. There's just chanting, when we hear Hare Krishna, absent-minded, right? What do I have to do today? During my japa, I have this, that, the other thing. Oh yeah, I should also be thinking about Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You just kind of go on. I think Prabhu was saying earlier, sometimes you chant a number of rounds and you're like, oh yeah, I'm chanting, I should be paying attention to what I'm doing. The mind is just going like this, right? So that is not chanting with love or chanting with affection. So trying to bring that back and set that intention. And finding these prayers that help us cultivate that mood in our own practice. Not only during the time that we sit down for our sadhana, but also during the other 22 or however many hours left in the day that you're not chanting, reciprocating with Krishna, trying to remember Krishna. Because that time will influence our japa time, and our japa time will influence the other time. And in conclusion, being a beggar at the feet of the holy name, begging for that kripa, for that association, and for that ability to render some service to Hari Guru and the Vaishnavas. Because nothing we have or can do on our own. Everything is by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, the Guru and Krishna. So that's been my experience. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Oh, Hare Krishna, is it my turn already? I had started chanting over 50 years ago. And my journey, as with everyone else here who has spoken, is a work in progress. But I would like to honestly say I am so grateful to the devotees of this temple, because in the last 8 or 9 years that I have been here, I have felt the most progress. It is such a wonderful community. There are so many devotees who are very serious and sincere. There are 2 devotees that reached out to me, Ananda Shakti and Prema Rupa Madhavi, and asked if I would text them in the morning with a prayer for our japa. And we've since taken turns, but I highly recommend that to everyone. Find a couple of people at the temple or someone in your family that you feel very close to, who very seriously takes their japa, and take turns saying a prayer before you start your japa. And it helps so much. Lately, I've been taking my prayers from the Harinam Chintamani. And it is so ecstatic. But let me go back 50 years. And I had, before that for a few years, I would run into the devotees. By Krishna's incredible mercy, there would be chanting parties. ISKCON, the one who came up with the fiberglass mridanga, ISKCON came over to LA City College when I was there and spoke to me for a long time. He said, anything you want to do in life, you can do in Krishna consciousness. So there I had some silly idea. I said, well, he goes, where do you want to go in the world? And I said, I'd like to live in Peru. And so he says, you can do that in Krishna consciousness. And so that is the first time I started making a plan. Yes, someday I will join Krishna consciousness. That's the first time I started thinking that. It was some years later, but that seed was planted. Later I ran into Jadharani in front of Pickwick Books, and she shows me that picture of Krishna on a picnic with all the gopas. And she goes, wouldn't you like to be a blade of grass at his lotus feet? I go, very interesting. So in this way, I was getting familiar with it. And by the early I would say by 1975, I found myself, I was getting a lot of mercy. I felt like because I'm just starting, I'm getting some mercy. So I would walk down the street, I would take the scenic route and take a bus that was further away so I could have this walk. And it was the start of my japa, but I didn't have a japa bag yet. I was just calling out the holy names loud enough for any jiva to hear. I was chanting for the bugs on the sidewalk and any birds that could hear and any dogs that were behind fences, and I was happily chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Eventually, I ran into Chatura, who gave me the nectar of devotion. I came to visit a temple after that, New Dwarka, and I eventually got the Bhagavad Gita. By the time I had finished reading Bhagavad Gita, I was convinced of the philosophy. I started leaving the eggs out of the carrot cake and cheesecake that my husband, we had a restaurant. I was in charge of the desserts and the pickles. I started leaving out the eggs. Him being a chef, he notices, and he goes, "Why don't you just move into that place then?" And I said, "Oh, can I?" So I took it as an invitation, and I moved. Just like that. We had been married 8 years. We had a 4-year-old. When he turned 4, my son agreed, when I turned 4, we go, "Happy birthday." And he goes, "Okay, Mom, let's pack." And we moved out. We moved into the temple. Amazingly, I ended up sharing the place with Ishan's wife, Bibhavati, because he was living in the drum factory. But then it got harder. It seems like when I run into crisis in life, I get very depressed. So even though I would hear in every class, just about every class in New Dwarka, I would hear, when your mind starts to wander, drag it back to the sound of the holy name. But I was lazy, and I was enjoying being depressed. It was very self-centered, and I could just wallow in my grief. Oh, why did I leave my husband? Oh, what have I done? Blah, blah, blah. And I now realize I sacrificed my chance to be with the holy name, to have it just be a background beat, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, while my mind was thinking all these thoughts. And honestly, it went on that way for, let's say, 45 years. Now, I had enough sincerity somehow, and I had enough causeless mercy that I stayed. At one point, I didn't stay. At one point, things got so rough in ISKCON, and it corresponded to after Prabhupada left the planet. There was so much chaos that I just couldn't stay. I was teaching high school. I did the art department. I tried to bring in what I could. I called it underground Sankirtan. So any examples I did, some of you may have seen the t-shirts that I made. I did the 10 main incarnations of Lord Vishnu. And that's what I used as class teaching examples. My students were primarily from Asia. Primarily. This is where you can say God works in very mysterious ways, because one parent insisted on taking me to the Buddhist temple she liked to go to. So I went with her, and we got a sit-down time with the head monk. And he's just about to launch into his philosophy, and Paramatma forced me to say, I am already initiated into a process, but I haven't been chanting. And he says, why haven't you been chanting? And I felt compelled to say, from this moment on, I promise to chant at least 2 rounds a day. And from that, I don't know how long it took, but soon I was back up to 16 rounds a day. And the most amazing thing happened when I moved up here. I had many injuries over the years. It's from being in a woman's body, not being trained up how to use dangerous equipment, and then having to use that dangerous equipment. And I ended up with different nerve injuries. And so I got put on some medicine that very successfully blocked the pain to nerves. However, it had side effects. And one day, I found myself thinking, oh, I dropped that on the floor. And, a coffee cup, a sponge, I don't remember what it was. And it's like, I thought, well, I might as well kill myself then. I thought, what? Where did this thought come from? And then I thought, I'm not feeling even sad. So what is this about? And I looked at the instructions and the side effects of this medication, and it said may cause suicidal feelings. Now, that meant I had to take a year. I had already moved in and visiting this temple. It was right in the beginning. I had to very gradually, because it was a very dangerous medicine, take it down a step each month until I was finally free of it, completely free of it. That gave me a lot of courage. And what courage was that? To start watching what my mind's doing in my japa and dragging my mind back to the sound of the holy name. That's when I started to make some progress. Before that, all my chanting was just background, like I was hearing it from the next room. Somebody else was chanting while my mind was in control of me. My very sick mind was in control of me. But now, I was, by incredible causeless mercy, starting to hear my japa. And as I got encouraged, I got more encouraged. So I started reading, and then we started that little prayer before japa going. And I read The Art of Chanting Japa also, the Art of Chanting Hare Krishna, and I'm now reading the Harinam Chintamani. And I had realized, a few years ago at this temple that I can't do anything. Without Krishna's sanction, I can't even blink an eye. So I better pray. And let me pray, starting with Prabhupada. I started also then feeling Prabhupada's presence. Very much feeling that he was here, he's never left, and he's right here. And last night when we were doing the little conversations, Nitai Priya said to me that she feels that if I am not, she was saying this about herself, if I am not hearing my rounds, it's like Krishna standing right in front of me and I'm ignoring him. So I went, yeah, yes, very true. So it's getting better and better. I thank every single one of you. I thank my students very, very much, because who knows who you are in reality. You are helping us all so much. And you will be carrying on the movement. Just remember, always drag your mind back. That's all I got.
There's something magical about hearing somebody's journey in Krishna consciousness in general, and that aspect that's most important, which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed us in the process of chanting. So let's appreciate all of them with a loud Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Devotees have been sending me messages saying, this is so nice to hear you all talking about your journey and your experience, what worked, what maybe didn't work. I think when you see what doesn't work, you also experience Krishna's great mercy. I was hearing Gauranga Prabhu saying that Krishna's willing, he was talking about the first canto, the first verse, Lord Krishna is willing to wait infinite amount of time through infinite space in the universe for us to just say yes to Him at some point. So we're the carriers of mercy. We have enough time that devotees can ask questions from our devotees who agreed to speak. They were all, I think, a little bit anxious about talking like this because you want to be real and portray who you are, but you also want to do the save of inspiring others. So does anybody have questions that they want, or elaborations that they want to hear from our devotees here? If not, I'm going to ask you to share your journey too. No, I'm joking. Anyone to break the ice? Thank you, Ashish Prabhu.
Thank you so much for sharing the realization. So I think in the initial, Aditya and Tung Vidya, when you were sharing, so set a goal and then stick to it consistently, but it still can feel like a heavy burden or cloud. And now I have set a goal, and one day was okay, a lot of motivation. Next day, the weight is like heavy, right? So then sometimes it doesn't feel like, okay, in simple words, how do you get rid of the heaviness? Because from my perspective, it's a big goal. It's not just time dedication, but to sit and dedicate time, prioritize it. Feels like lifting a heavy dumbbell or something. So how do you, then you can feel guilty that now I've already signed up and now I was given instruction to stick to it. Anything on this kind of thought process? And both of you, anyone? I know the sticking to the goal came from Tung Vidya, but yeah.
I mean, I try not to think of it as a big goal. I know that sounds very, it's not exactly answering your question, but I think if I continuously refer to it as a big goal, that makes me more anxious. So just thinking about, I think about it as something that okay, I'm going to do this. It's, I don't attach, I consciously try not to attach it to being something like that, if I don't do it one day, it's, I'm never going to be able to do it again. That sort of fear. I try to think of it in a fun way that doesn't exactly happen each day, but the simplest, for me, I guess the only thing I do is try not to call it a big goal, because that makes it feel like something very if I don't do this one day, I can never do it again. No, some days you're not able to meet all of your rounds consistently. You try again the next day. I mean, that's what works for me, but I'm sure she's been chanting 16 rounds longer, so.
I was thinking that, so 100% valid. I've definitely felt that, and I still feel it. For me, now that I've taken initiation, I think there's a huge aspect of duty involved, because now I'm a disciple of someone, and he has faith in me. Actually, the whole story is that when I was going to take initiation, my biggest setback was that I was scared that I wouldn't be able to keep up with my 16 rounds once I got into medical school. I was like, right now I'm okay, all right. I have the time, the free time to be able to take that long, or I'm able to do that. I don't have as many responsibilities, but once I'm back in school, in medical school, I'm not going to be able to do that. And so Guru Maharaj was he's just do it. Just do it. Like Nike. But he was actually talking about how okay, there's 4 quadrants. And if you have urgent and not urgent, important and not important, the only thing that fits into the urgent and important quadrant is your sadhana and Krishna consciousness. That is the only thing that's going to be in there. And he's like, then why do you worry about anything? And for me, it was his faith in me was that, he's like, I know you can do it. Just do it. He's like, if you have struggles, I'll help you. Why would I say no at that point? But so for me, it's a huge duty aspect. But in general, for the heaviness, I think Balinda Prabhu and Mother Manasakanga can correct me if I'm wrong. But I've heard that previous acharyas have said that, focus more on the quality versus getting to a certain set number. So what Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj said was, like, even at the risk of death, one should finish their prescribed number of rounds. You can choose what number you feel is right for you. It doesn't, like, right now the goal is, like, okay, like, you become an initiated devotee, you trance 16. But, like, I'm 24, and I started when I was, like, 6, 7? I don't know, my mom. But obviously it's like, it's a huge, like, okay, 1, 2, 4, 2, 8, 4, like, we're just bouncing all over the place. So it's up to you to figure out how much can I definitely do now, like, I'm for sure. Don't let that, like, that heaviness of this number of rounds should not be the primary aspect. It should be more about, I think, in my opinion, that it's more about how do I connect with the holy name. If it's one round that's allowing me to connect with the holy name, then so be it. It's one round. But if you feel like, okay, I can do 4 rounds and I feel like I can connect with the holy name, then maybe it's 4 rounds. And then you progress gradually from there, I think.
I have one thing to add, and that is pray for help. Pray to the most compassionate, the most famously compassionate, Lord Nityananda. He is so compassionate. Ask him to help you before you start to say, oh, please help me to do this. It seems overwhelming now. It seems like something I can't do. And even more compassionate than him, his Shakti, Janavama. Pray to her. And then it will not only get easier, it'll get pleasant. And not only pleasant, it'll get at some point joyful. So that you look forward to it instead of feeling, oh, I promised I gotta do this. Yep. Okay.
Did you have a follow-up?
So I've heard the phrase, I drag myself back. For me, mostly, I get to a point and I just say, I'm done. Just as far as I'm going to get today. How do you drag yourself back and get back into it when you feel that you're done for then? Does anybody have any ideas?
Again, I would say you pray. If you have set in your mind a different amount to chant, if you're wanting initiation and you're trying to get up to 16, or you set a goal of 8, or you set a goal of 4, or even like I did when I got lost, I set a goal of 2. And then you pray for help to be able to do it, not just do it, but do it hearing every syllable, in a meditative mood, respectful, and with devotion. And honestly, if you do it with those things added to it, you won't feel, okay, I'm done. You'll feel, oh, this has been really wonderful, and you may keep going.
Did you hear Maharaj's class last night? Patience, determination, and enthusiasm. You should listen, it's on YouTube. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, Srila Prabhupada quotes Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that if we don't have enthusiasm, we should just do it anyway, and enthusiasm would come. Or in other words, we should act enthusiastic. Sometimes we have to, if you take it into like the the work field, right? I bet if we say, who wants to go to work tomorrow? No one's hand's going to go up, right? So sometimes you just have to push yourself. And when we push ourselves and pray and we have patience, then that enthusiasm comes. Krishna provides it. But there needs to be active engagement also. Not just, please, give me the inspiration, and you sit and you look at your phone and play video games or whatever it is you want to do, right? There has to be active engagement. Active engagement in Krishna service. One of the 9 processes of devotional service, which hearing and chanting are the topmost. So sometimes you just have to act the part, as Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says. And I think that's with like all of the problems we have in the process. Sometimes we get bewildered by, I can't do it, I'm so distracted, or I have no taste, or fill in the blank, whatever it is that, is troubling our mind, and we end up becoming more what I can't do conscious rather than Krishna conscious. And that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks, at least for me, in over the years. And changing that mindset of what I can't do to focusing on what you can do and being grateful for that. And forgiving yourself for what shortcomings you have.
Haribol. I tend to, somehow or other, I tend to think of chanting japa and going to programs as a New Year's resolution. And then soon, maybe a week later, or 2 weeks, or a month, I've forgotten all about it. Or then I feel guilty, and then I don't care. So I've got all those things going on. Like I've got up for a while with my morning program people in Vancouver and did japa with them for a little while, and then I tried to do the 7:45 to 8 a.m., just 15 minutes. I tell myself, just 15 minutes, you can do it. And I would do it for maybe a year, and then I thought, no, I have to do this instead. And then I don't do that. And then, Friday comes along and it's time for Bhakti Vriksha, and I think, okay, I can go, okay, I got time. And then something comes up, and then I don't do it. So, or I do it for a while, and I'm proud of myself. Look, I'm coming, I'm doing this, I'm joining in. And then something comes up, and I don't do it again. So I know, make a plan, stick to it, and if it doesn't go perfectly, try it again the next day, and try it again the next day. But I have so many reasons. Reasons which are not reasons, they're excuses for not doing things so devotionally, you know? So how do I fix that? Any ideas?
First of all, you are directly connected with our Acharya for this age, Srila Prabhupada. You have done so much service for him over the years. You have gone to different countries. You have preached in different places. You told me, one time tried and did 64 rounds.
Yes.
So you can do this, pray for help. Just very sincerely go, oh, I know I decided I want to do this instead. But just stop yourself a second and go, Prabhupada, does this please you? And think about that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm thinking that if no one else had any questions, I was going to ask a question to the rest of you, which was, or anyone on the floor for that matter. Most people have an experience where they talk about some of the best japa that they've ever chanted. It's like just there's like a specific person you were with or a specific setting. So I wanted to pose the question to pretty much anyone in this room if they'd be willing to share what is the best japa.
The best japa I've ever chanted was, well, all throughout Mayapur, but I think it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bhajan Kutir. I think that was the one. And we all had, I think you were also there, it was after Maharaj had finished his sort of program, Vaisheshika Maharaj had finished his program, and we were all waiting, I think, to catch like rickshaws or whatever, and we were sort of in that area, and a couple of us decided to chant right in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and that was probably the best rounds I've ever done. But that was because he was there, so.
I don't know.
I would say recently, within the last week, I was reading for the prayers for my little prayer group and texting prayers from the Harinam Chintamani, where Haridas Thakur is explaining once again how the sound of the holy name is non-different from Krishna. It's the same as Krishna. You can see in your heart the form if you are sincere and with faith. If you have the faith, you can do this. And as I was chanting, I was looking at a photograph of my Murti, of Radha Vallabha, of my deity Gopijana Vallabha, and I chanted all 16 rounds just sitting there and trying to hear, praying to hear, and looking at this photograph. And I would say that was joyful. I know that you have different experiences here and you have time to speak of it. Don't be shy. We've had the nerve to expose our whole lives with the holy name right here. You can tell a little snippet of your life with the holy name.
Hare Krishna. All of you were so amazing, first of all. And personally, I'm honored to be friends with Aditi and Tungavidya. Such beautiful realizations. And we talk, like Jay Prabhu said, we usually, even when I'm not in state, we're all like on the phone. But, you know, when you look at them like this, and it's just like, wow, like, you know, we grew up. you know, we were so young at some point and we were just raised by all of you. And now, and we're sitting here. It's kind of awkward, but then it's like, okay, this is what you guys wanted to see. You know, all of us to be grown up and mature. So proud of you guys, first of all. And Mataji and Prabhu, thank you so much for sharing your experiences in life. In response to the prompt, I think best rounds for me, so I think every day when I chant my rounds, I usually have a different experience. I don't know how many different experiences there can be, but every day I usually have a new one. And sometimes good, sometimes not so good, depending on my mood and what's going on that day. And so the day after I got initiated, this was 9 years ago by His Holiness Rumpa Swami Maharaj. I was young, super enthusiastic, and my attention span was also much more at that time. Right now, like my focus, you know, starts drifting after 2-3 rounds. At that point, I got initiated. I remember it was Christmas of 2016. I got initiated. Next day, it was December 26, 2016. And then I sat down, I had my bead bag, and Maharaj was doing Japa retreat in New Jersey at the time. So I got initiated on the 25th, Christmas Day, and the next day I was still in the presence of Maharaj. And I chanted my rounds. Best rounds. Yeah. And I've never been able to replicate that. Sometimes I want to, but I'm like, you know what, let that be special. That's okay. Like, because that never came back. Because, you know, it's like the first day after being initiated, it's like, you know, amazing. But that exact mood never come back. I've never chanted such pristine 16 rounds again. But, you know, hopefully one day, you know, maybe with Maharaj's blessings, if I, you know, take up more service, and maybe I can get that back, you know, that new enthusiasm, starting something new, like a new journey. So maybe that can come back, but yeah.
It reminds me of Dhruva Maharaj hearing from Lord Vishnu, "You will not see me again in this lifetime." And he keeps trying to get there.
I'm actually curious, what does this mean here? I'm just curious here.
My definition of best in this context was undivided focus. Also, I was 12 and I had no worries in life. That probably had a big part. Now we can't expect the same. I'm not going to pressure myself into that either, because, you know, now we think about work and whatnot. At that point, like, not a single, like, literally not a single worry in the world. So, obviously, undivided focus. On top of that, I just got initiated. I was like, wow, you know. But now, so that was my definition of, you know, best was undivided focus. Yeah.
So best means minimal or no thoughts,
right,
than the pulling in the mind.
In this context. Yeah.
I think undivided focus, or also you just feel so much more connected to the holy name. Like you genuinely feel like Krishna is here. There's something different than your general experience with chanting. Like for me, it was actually the day before I got initiated, because I was in so much anxiety. It's actually the day of, because I got initiated on Gaur Purnima morning, and I had been told, it was recommended that you could do your 16 rounds before you get initiated. So I woke up like really early and got 16 rounds done. But because I was in so much anxiety, because I was still thinking like, am I doing the right thing? Like, will I even be a good disciple? Like, there was just so much going on in my head. I'm sitting in this room at like 2:30, it was like 2:30 a.m. and I'm just sitting on the bed and I'm like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It was like me, like completely having a mental breakdown. But I did not sleep that night, obviously. But I've noticed that a lot of quote unquote my best rounds, it's like, quote unquote like my best rounds have always been like, I was distressed in some like pretty significant way. I was in a lot of anxiety. I was really distressed. Like, for example, when I took the entrance exam for medical school, MCAT, the day before I was taking the MCAT, or the day or the morning of, those rounds were like really good. Because it's like you're channeling all of that energy, and like you don't know, at least for me, like I grew up, the example is that whenever you're in distress, like take shelter of Krishna. And the best way to take shelter in this age is to take shelter of the holy name. Right? My favorite verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam is Kaler dosha nidhe rajan asti eko mahaguna kirtana deva Krishna se mukta sangha paramvijit, which essentially says that like this age of Kali is an ocean of fault. We see it every day. It's literally like a dumpster fire. But the verse says it has one very good quality that essentially counteracts everything else, which is that simply by chanting the holy name, one can go back to Godhead. So.
There's a story from the very first yatra I went on, and it was the ISKCON Calcutta temple. They have there's a special room where there's like, honestly, it looks like a very like Murti of Srila Prabhupada. Like it's very very similar to. It was his room. That's right. And so he was sitting there, and all the before Mangalarti, or I think after. It's after Mangalarti, there's time for Japa. So the Prabhus stay sort of outside, and then all the Matajis go inside Prabhupada's room. And he's sitting in the middle, and we all sit around him. And so I sat right in front of Srila Prabhupada. And so I remember I was really sleepy that day because it was like the first day, and we woke up for Mangal, and I decided, I was like, okay, today I'm going to do good rounds. It's fine. I'm in front of Srila Prabhupada. And I remember I kept like drifting off, and every time I would look up and I'd see Srila Prabhupada almost glaring at me. Not glaring, but you realize that he's there, and so you're like, okay, I'm gonna do good rounds. I'm gonna power through it. And somehow or the other, every time I was sleepy, either like a Mataji would start chanting super loudly, wake me up, or I'd see Srila Prabhupada and be like, nope, I have to be on like my best behavior. So it's really helpful to actually chant in those situations. You have to you have to do your best. So I thought that was a really nice experience.
I think one thing I'll say is like a lot of people have experience that their chanting is best with other devotees, but a lot of times we're all chanting on our own for whatever reason. So I was thinking of that Vaisheshika Prabhu, a lot of times when they do japa, the audio that's playing is Srila Prabhupada chanting, but in that audio, it's that one audio clip where Srila Prabhupada in the middle says, sit properly. And I think that always jolts people because they're like, oh, this is like a break in. So I think if you're able to access that audio when you're chanting, I think it's a good one because it snaps you back into reality whenever you hear it.
Anybody else want to share their experience with Japa, or things that they found help them, or things that hinder good quality?
I just want to say very inspiring.
You found most helpful? A lot has been said. One sentence from each of them that you found most helpful. Takeaway.
One sentence. Set an intention before you start chanting. Do some sort of prayer, and then I think everyone has said this, just bring your mind back to that prayer anytime you feel like it's drifting.
You can't repeat what she said.
Me too.
I'm thinking about my Guru Maharaj saying, just do it. But I'm thinking about it in this scenario of whenever we don't want to do something, we still do it because it's good for us. You want to exercise, you do it because it's good for you. If you want to eat healthy, you eat healthy because it's good for you. The same thing goes for japa. So just do it.
I think urgency, and it kind of comes to Vedavati's question, I think when we have a sense of urgency that we need to take shelter of Krishna now, not later, then we can prioritize our time and our energy to engaging in those activities that please Guru and Krishna. Srila Prabhupada would always stress the urgency of right now, and other sadhus I've associated with really drove that home, that sense of urgency.
I have been reading yesterday a few different places that say to chant in the association of Vaishnavas. So, chant in the association of assembled Vaishnavas, whether you can see them or not. Jai.
Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai.
I thought it was just great hearing this from all the devotees. So let's put the chairs away. Maharaj will be coming and start lecture. Can we arrange the mats kind of nicely? And